In part 1 of this series, we told you about the care and maintenance of the E80 sensator itself. In this part, we'll discuss the maintenance and inspection of the weight indicator head, as well as the transmission line leading from the E80 to the indicator head. Now, you've just given the sensator a good overhaul and installed it back into the anchor. You check the indicator with the blocks empty, and you're still getting an improper reading. The problem may lie with the anchor or deadline. The drill line needs to have a good clear path leaving the anchor, traveling up into the derrick. You should never tie anything to the drill line or obstruct its path in any way. Tying it back or blocking the line's path will cause the sensator to pick up a false weight and in turn transmit it to the indicator head. The line should come off perpendicular to the anchor and continue unobstructed in a straight line to the crown. This keeps the line from rubbing on the side wall of the deadline anchor, which would create side pull. Now, side pull will give an improper reading in the load cell, not to mention damage to your wire line. Besides the anchor itself causing problems, such things as a misaligned rotary table or a stuck sheave in the crown can also cause an inaccurate reading. Now, if the drill string passing through the rotary table drags against the side of the table, weight will either be added or subtracted in the reading of the indicator. For example, if it drags on the way in, the load will be interpreted as being lighter. On the other hand, if it drags on the way out, friction will add weight to the string and to the weight indication. So it's very important to check the table and see that it's in its proper alignment. Now, a stuck sheave in the crown can also give you plenty to worry about. The wire line or drill line will still move across the sheave like this, even though the sheave is stuck. This will also cause severe damage to the wire line as well as to the sheave. Like the string dragging on the way out of the rotary table, a stuck sheave will add more weight to your reading, making it inaccurate. You probably have already checked the load cell to see if the proper gap has been achieved. By the way, it's about 0.62 of an inch, or 16 millimeters, with the blocks empty. Also, check the mounting holes on the sensator to see if they're still round in shape. Any unusual shaped holes will give a faulty reading. Egg-shaped holes here will cause too much play between the arm of the anchor and the sensator. And, as you know, this will throw off your reading. Also, check the holes on the lobe of the anchor. They should be round as well. Now, the next major problem to check for is the anchor itself stuck? What this means is, has the anchor corroded in a way that doesn't allow the arm to move like it should? It doesn't move that much, but if it is corroded, your reading will be off. To check for this problem, the blocks need to be empty of any load. Remove the transmission hose, which runs from the indicator to the sensator. You do this by simply unscrewing the disconnect on the load cell body. Once it's disconnected, check to see if any fluid leaked out from around the disconnect. Now, these leaks can be caused by a couple of different reasons. One is if the threads on either side of the disconnect are damaged. The fluid can leak between the stripped threads. Another cause could be bad O-rings in the disconnect. If the O-ring is bad, like this one, it'll cause a seal to form, and it'll not allow the fluid to flow into the load cell like it should. If one O-ring is bad, go ahead and replace the other one as well. Now that way both should last about the same length of time. And the same should be done with the disconnects too. Oh, and by the way, the disconnect should only be tightened a little more than hand tight. This lessens the possibility of stripping the threads. Now, after the disconnect is unscrewed and the line has been bled off, you can now see if the anchor is stuck. If the sensator bottoms out with no weight in the blocks, this is a good sign that the anchor is not stuck. But if it is, you'll need to clean the anchor and get it back into good working order. The transmission line, which is nothing more than the hose running from the sensator to the gauge on the driller's console, should also be checked. This soft hose should be traced out looking for wear, leaks, separation of the hose from the wire braids, or a crimp in the hose, which will cause a stop in the flow of fluid in the line. If any of these problems occur, especially the leaks, or the hose separating, by all means, replace the hose with a new one. Once you've traced it back to the driller's console, make sure the indicator head is secure. Sometimes vibration can cause the gauge to work its way loose, causing an improper reading. So take a little extra time and tighten it down. Now, sometimes we'll overlook the simplest of problems. For example, the dampener block on the weight indicator. Be sure the dampener stem is open. Now, you might feel pretty dumb to go to all this trouble and then find out the dampener was closed. From the closed position, the stem should be opened counterclockwise, an average dampening of about 2 to 2.5 turns. Now, this is just an average, but it should be close enough to ensure a good dampening position. Also, check the stems for leaks or bad threads like you did with the junction block, and check in this area too. This copper tube carries fluid from the dampener block up into the head of the indicator and into the bourdon tube. Now, once you've checked all the tubes and hoses running into the indicator, it's a good idea to go one step further and check the inside of the indicator. To get into the indicator, remove large thumb screws on the back of the console. This allows the case ring or front cover to be removed from the console. Now, once the front cover has been removed, the total weight dials on the indicator can then be taken off. They're made into two separate half-moon shaped plates, held on by two small standard head screws. On the upper half, check the back side of the dial right in here for two small scratches. Now, these scratches could be caused by two linkage screws connecting the bourdon tube. The friction of the screws rubbing will cause a sluggishness or erratic weight measurement in the gauge. Now, you can solve this problem by simply filing down the two screws with an ordinary file, just enough that they don't rub against the back of the dial. Now, removing the lower half of the dial will expose the rest of the internal workings of the gauge. Be sure that when you have them off to check and see if it is in fact the right dial for that particular indicator. A gauge rated for one sensator may not be right for another, so check the ratings and be sure they're right. Looking at the linkage and movement inside the gauge might remind you of the inside of a clock. Well, in a way, you're right. The linkage and gears are designed and manufactured on the same line as an expensive clock would be. Check the linkage and moving parts to see if any dirt or corrosion has formed on them. If you do find that dirt is a problem, take a good electrical contact cleaner and spray it down really well. Now, be sure not to use a cleaner that will leave a film or a silicon residue like WD-40, because it makes dirt cling to the metal. Also, use a soft brush on the linkage to get rid of any dirt that the spray might have missed. Behind the pointers on the movement, you'll find a small spring and spring guard. Now, sometimes the guard gets bent by one of the gears, and if it's not found, it could rub against the spring. This rubbing, too, can cause an inaccurate reading. Well, that's really all there is to the inspection of the indicator head. If you have any major problems, such as calibration of the unit, be sure to contact the manufacturer for help. Now, let's go over one more time problems that occur with the anchor and the transmission line. Be sure the drill line has a good clear path running from the anchor to the crown. Never tie anything to it. The line should come off perpendicular to the anchor, so the line will not cause side pull on the anchor. And by all means, check to see if the anchor itself is stuck. This can be caused by dirt or corrosion. The mounting holes on the sensator and lobes of the anchor should not have any unusual shape to them. Now make sure they're round in shape. Check the disconnects for wear, such as thread damage or worn O-rings. Both problems can cause fluid leaks in your line. And remember, if you replace one O-ring, go ahead and replace the other one as well. Trace out the transmission line, looking for wear, leaks, and separation of the hose from the wire braids. Also, check for a crimp in the line. All of it can cause a stoppage in flow of fluid from the sensator up to the gauge. Be sure the indicator head is tightened down securely in the driller's console. Now, sometimes vibration can cause the gauge to work its way loose, giving an improper reading. On the dampener block, check the dampener stem for leaks or damage to the threads. Also, check the copper tubing running from the block to the bourdon tube for leaks. Check the rotary table for misalignment. A misaligned table will cause the pipe to drag against the table, adding more or less weight to your reading. Look out for stuck sheaves in the crown. This will also give an inaccurate reading. Keep them clean and greased at all times. Now, to get into the indicator head, just remember these few steps. It shouldn't take you any time to get good at it. First, remove the thumb screws from the back of the console. This allows the front cover or case ring to be removed. Next, remove the total weight dials by removing the standard head screws from the front. Be sure to check and see if the dial has been rubbed by the screws on the linkage. If they have, just file them down with an ordinary file. Remove the lower half of the dial to expose the internal portion of the gauge. This will allow you to clean the linkage and the movements. And use only an electrical contact cleaner and a soft brush. Remember, never use a spray like WD-40. It leaves a silicone residue that causes the dirt to stick to the movement. As we've shown you, checking the anchor, transmission line, and the indicator head is really no major job. But it's a job that's important and needs to be done to keep production up. If you have something major that's wrong with the indicator, such as a calibration problem, get in touch with the manufacturer or service representative. They'll be glad to help you. Remember, don't fix your weighting instrument like this guy. Take your time. Do it right.